Welcome back to Touring the AFC South. I am your host, Mike Patton, and everyone is getting prepared. They're looking in their wallets, making sure they got that nice, crispy $20 bill. They got the Cash App all lit up and ready, or the Zelle, whatever you use. And they're doing their homework. Yes, it is fantasy football time. Everyone is getting prepared and ready and thinking of the glory or the failures of the last season.
Yes.
So going into this fantasy football season, I figured I would reach out to someone I know definitely has a great pulse on fantasy football. That would be Mr. Brandon Howard from The Athletic. How you doing, man?
Hey, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Of course, there's always room in the office for you, man.
I appreciate that.
But for those that aren't aware, can you kind of give them just a little bit of history of your knowledge of fantasy football?
Well, I kind of got in to just football in general from a scouting perspective. And the folks at The Athletic had a need for fantasy, but they wanted kind of a scout's view of how to look at fantasy football. So I've been kind of, putting in my knowledge from the game itself and applying it to fantasy football. And, just from that and evaluating players and how they're utilized, have had some fantasy success in that way. So I guess that's where you could say my value lies.
Gotcha. So kind of like the de facto fantasy football GM for everyone.
Pretty much. I guess you could put it that way.
Got you. Okay. So for beginners, I'll just kind of break it down for the beginners and those that haven't ever really played before. So for the beginners, what would you kind of tell them would be something you start a team with? Quarterback or a wide receiver, or where would you tell them to begin?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the quarterback kind of, guides the ship. I would definitely want to start there. The type of quarterback I'm looking for, that everybody has a different opinion on, what to look for there. I think that there's multiple ways to play the quarterback position, but I will always die on this hill. I feel like dual threat quarterback is king, whether in the field of play and also in fantasy football. So I think you're going to want a guy. Defenses are too good these days, right? Gone are the days where you're going to get maybe at least 2 to 3 seconds to throw the football. It just doesn't work that way anymore. So I will always look for the guy who can escape, get out of harm's way, and make a play down the field when things don't go according to plan.
Yes, that definitely reminds me of a particular gentleman who has an offensive coordinator whose name is Greg Roman, who once was the offensive coordinator for a particular gentleman who's not playing the NFL.
Yeah,
should be playing in the NFL, but
absolutely.
I'll kind of save everyone and won't go down that path for this show.
Yeah, for sure. That's for another day.
That's right. But of course, offense and a quarterback, that's someone you would pick first. But let's go down to someone. Let's talk about someone or something that people have problems kind of knowing when and probably where to pick. And that's a defense.
Yeah.
Nobody knows when they pick a defense. Would you suggest or say that's probably one of the last things that you pick in fantasy football, or just depend upon what kind of defense you're looking at?
It's both of those things, right? What kind of defense are you looking at? Are you looking at an opportunistic defense, one that can take the ball away? Because that's what I'm looking for. Can you score points and can you take the ball away? Now, defenses like that, they're probably going to go a little earlier, right? But, you can kind of find defenses that present great value as well throughout. And I tend to be the type of person that waits until a little later to take a defense, because I know I can kind of find that and find a defense that, as long as I'm scoring points, I don't have to worry about what defense I have. I'll be in good shape.
Definitely a good point there. I thought about defense last year, and I thought I had a good one, and then how it goes. They start off well, and then they get blessed at some point, and then you're like, Yeah, what happened?
Right.
Well, we did have a question from the Torn in the AFC South inbox. That would be from Mr. Kyle Nash. How important is the schedule on picking a defense? That's a good question.
That is a very good question, and it's something to consider, right? If you start kind of going down murderer's row, like it in terms of the types of quarterbacks you're playing, and also let's say you're in let's say the AFC North, you almost don't catch a break in that division right now because you're going to get sliced and diced one way or another, So it just really depends upon, what does that schedule look like? Definitely something to take a look at. That can be really, really tough, especially, if you're looking at even AFC West, for instance. That's another one, So definitely take a look at what that schedule looks like. And also what the defense, how many points they gave up the year before. That's something to look at as well.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So getting back to the kind of obscure picks, let's go with kickers. Kickers. Definitely that's another one that you kind of look at a team. Maybe you look at if a team is kind of good between the 20s, but it's terrible in the red zone. Would that be a team you probably would pick as your kicker from, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. Also, again, looking at stats from the last year, the previous year, you definitely want to look at, okay, was this a team that had some red zone struggles? They move the football and then they just tend to die out if no real significant improvements have been made. And another one that you want to take a look at is, hey, do they have a quarterback that can move when things break down? Or does everything need to be perfect? They have an offensive line where things are going to typically be perfect. If they don't, then that kicker is going to be scoring some points this year if they're moderately efficient, so to speak. So definitely, those are some things to look at when you're looking for a kicker.
Gotcha. And for those that are listening, I'll probably be watching this back myself so I can take notes because I have a fantasy football draft coming pretty soon. But I gotta also ask, plenty are wondering as well because the value of running backs has kind of gone away as the years have gone on, and we're kind of the focus gone more towards a passing league,
which is so.
Yeah, it is what it is, right? But what are some indicators for you in terms of drafting a running back to your team?
Sure. For me, I'm not going to see. This is where a lot of fantasy football folks get into trouble. They discount the running back position just as a lot of NFL teams are doing as well. I don't know about you. I want somebody that's going to just give me good football players. I don't care what the position is. I want good football players. So you can't tell me that a Gus Edwards is a Christian McCaffrey. It's not the same guy, And I know that if one guy is healthy, he's going to put up a lot more yards. I know if Alvin Kamara is going to be playing, he's going to put up a lot more yards than one of these great value running backs that people keep hyping up. So this is, and I'm not saying that Gus Edwards is a great value running back. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying that I want the guy that can affect the game in a multitude of ways, whether it be on the ground and whether it be through the air. I want the guy that can split out wide and make plays as a receiver, but also dot the I and make plays between the tackles. And also where I think there's a distinction between an average running back and a very good running back is guys that can create. So when there's penetration, can you find a rushing lane? Can you create one? Are you able to press the hole and make it seem like you're going one way and then the very last minute get downhill, or change your aiming point last minute and be? So it's those little things and nuances of being a running back that a lot of, even at that level, they don't have, but people will pick a running back because, oh, well, he's bigger or size is not a skill. You got to be able to play the game of football. You got to be able to make guys miss. And I want the guy that can, I want a Michael Carter over Javonte Williams. That's just what I look for. I look for guys to be able to make people miss and who can create and can contribute as pass catchers as well.
Gotcha. Noted. Now, Picking a team. Again, I'm a first time guy, so picking a team, in your opinion, what is your level of importance in terms of positions and when it comes to fantasy football?
Um, well, I'm
Of course,
always gonna,
quarterback I know is going to be
yeah,
number
you're
one
always
more than
gonna
likely.
look for your quarterback, and some people go with a strategy. What they call it, some networks have coined it a hero strategy for running back or a zero strategy. A hero strategy would mean that you find a running back that can kind of do it all, right? That's your Christian McCaffreys of the world, your Dalvin Cooks, guys that have that kind of do it all skill set. Are you going to go with a hero? Or are you just going to pick another? You're just going to go with like 5, 6 wide receivers, and don't draft a running back, So sometimes, in some leagues, you're able to do that. And I think that's the kind of dismissive nature of the running back position. People are doing that. But I'm always going to advise definitely pick yourself a running back. It's important. It's cheap, easy yards and touchdowns every year.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. As far as the tight end position, I didn't discuss that one.
Yeah.
Is it important to look at a tight end that has weapons around him to kind of scale the production that he may have, or is it good to look and see one that doesn't have weapons around him? So maybe more of the focus is on him.
That's really a good question, and I really just tend to think that it's just, hey, you have to look at it year over year. What is the situation? You look at a Lamar Jackson and Andrews, that's going to be a connection every single year. They're going to go for potential double-digit touchdowns. It's just the way it's going to be, and you're going to get the value of the production out of them. People look at a guy like Travis Kelce, who had Tyreek Hill alongside him all these years. So he's their spacer, right? Tyreek Hill. So all that room underneath, that's Travis Kelce, right? And Mahomes is going to go to Kelce. Now that dynamic has changed a little bit. Kelce is really the only guy that he's got that chemistry with. So that he's going to have that. And you've also got Juju Smith-Schuster, who's going to be also kind of running in those underneath routes as well. So they're going to be kind of competing for touches and for catches. So those are types of things to keep an eye on and to consider. So you just got to consider the skill set and along with the production in previous years and how do they mesh together. And so those are all the things you should probably look at before drafting a tight
end. Gotcha. Okay. Noted. But of course, this is touring the AFC South, and what would touring the AFC South be without talking about the AFC?
For sure. For sure.
We got to do that. First up, of course, I'm going to mention the AFC South defending champions. That would be the Tennessee Titans. So yes. There's a lot of questions offensively for the Tennessee Titans. Of course, we got A.J. Brown's not going to be here. Not here this year. He's in Philadelphia. You've got Julio Jones, got waived. Now he's playing for the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Right.
Okay. Besides Derrick Henry, what other weapons do you think that, would be valuable fantasy-wise on this team offensively?
Yeah, so it's a lot of question marks, right? And it's a kind of boom bust, kind of reward there. You got Robert Woods coming off injury, and you've got another guy who I think is got so much talent, but I don't know as a rookie if he's going to be able to contribute. That's Reggie Roberson. He was a guy that was actually on Mel Kiper's big board as the number one wide receiver coming into the 2022 football season. And he had so much time, but just injury after injury after injury. So you just kind of have to see where that ends up landing. I think Treylon Burks, I think he's going to be, there's just going to be a learning curve there. Is he going to be able to catch on quickly? I know a lot of people made issues of how, rookie minicamp ended for him and all of that, but it's just going to depend on whether or not he can adapt to the NFL life. And I think that his talent suggests that he should have some success this year. You also got Chig Okonkwo. I really like his game. I liked him at Maryland. I liked his ability as a potential H-back. But again, he's got all kinds of ability. He's going to beat linebackers all day long. You can get a mismatch on that with that guy all day. It's just going to be dependent upon how quickly he can assimilate to the NFL.
Gotcha. Okay. And now, of course, the big question everyone is asking, Derrick Henry. Now, of course, he ended last season. Injury, came back in the playoffs, but still really wasn't himself.
Right.
When do you think is a good time to maybe pick him, or do you kind of shy away from picking him because of the injury last season?
I'm never shying away from picking Derrick Henry. Never. That guy is a threat to go 2,000 yards in a season every season, until he hangs it up, because nobody wants to tackle that. I know what it feels like to be on the other end trying to tackle somebody that big. It's not fun. Nobody wants to do it week in and week out. And so it's borderline unfair. Somebody that big, that fast, he's just too good. And he's also got the footwork to match. So, once that guy gets headed downhill, nobody wants any parts of that. And I never hesitate to pull the trigger on a guy like that, because he's going to get the carries as well.
Gotcha. Okay. So we're going to move on to the next team in the division who had a chance to sew up the division, or actually make the playoffs, I should say.
Yeah.
And lost 2 straight games to end the season. That'd be those Indianapolis Colts.
Right.
And of course, the guy that was leading them last year, Carson Wentz, is now a Washington Commander. And in comes Matt Ryan. Now, how viable do you think is Matt Ryan as a fantasy football quarterback option with the Colts?
He would be kind of one of my value picks late round. He wouldn't be a guy that I immediately go to as, hey, I feel like he's going to put up a bunch of yards this year. I think he's savvy enough to always put his team in position to have success. Whether they gel well enough for that to happen on a consistent basis, particularly earlier in the season, I don't know. I think it's going to take some time. But he's a vet. He's been around forever. And I think he's going to be able to piece together a very good year. And he's got some pretty solid weapons around him. So I look for him to have a good year.
All right. Speaking of one of those weapons, of course, you have Jonathan Taylor. He's going to be running the football and, of course, more than likely catching the football. You, of course, name minds maybe doing a little bit more of that than him.
Right.
But a guy's going to be catching the football alongside, or one of those targets that Matt Ryan would be looking for is Michael Pittman Jr.
Yeah.
Now, I wonder about him. He's going to be the number 1 wide receiver for them. Do you think that kind of takes away some of his production this season?
I don't. I don't think it does. I think teams are going to be so, focused on stopping the likes of a Jonathan Taylor. I think people are going to try and I'm not giving up on a guy like Paris Campbell. I think he still has some juice. I think it's time for him to finally remain healthy, show people what he has. That young man has a ton of talent. And so those two together, if, again, Paris Campbell stays healthy, Pittman on the other side, if you're trying to do something crazy and double the other or bracket the other one's going to make you pay. And it's just a matter of pick your poison. So they've got weapons. Now, what I like about the Michael Pittman Jr., I think his game is geared more towards what Matt Ryan likes to do. So I don't see them airing it out, too much. I see quick timing routes. I see some one-on-ones, back shoulders, things of that sort. And I think that he can win that way and put up a lot of numbers this year. So I'm looking forward to seeing that connection thrive, in this football season.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of chemistry develops over the season. Now, of course, going back to the Torn AFC South inbox, of course, we have Habiba with a comment. Derrick Henry, in the words of Primetime, don't nobody want to hit it. Well, that's a good one. And of course, Kyle Nash, Colts. What had happened was when it comes to them in the playoffs last year. Oh boy! But we're going to move on to the team that actually did have a lot of different things going on. I mean, a lot of different things, and that would be the Houston Texans.
For sure. For sure.
Boy, oh boy. Now, nobody's really expecting them to be a great team this year. Nobody's really expecting them to win more than 5 games.
Right.
So they do, but I will say this: they do have the best wide receiver in the AFC South, in my opinion, in Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, for sure.
How valuable do you think he's going to be this year, despite the Texans being what they are?
It's hard, and I'm a huge fan of Davis Mills, the person. He does a lot for the youth in his community. I love what he does for all the young up and coming quarterbacks. He put on a camp for a couple of my son's friends, and it was amazing. And the time that he spent doing that was great. On the football field, though, there's a lot of inconsistency with Davis Mills, and he's young, so we want to give him the time and leash to continue to thrive, to continue to get better. He can do it, and he's shown some glimpses of what he can become. There's just some consistency lacking there, and I'd hope for him to continue to improve. But until that time, the Texans are kind of a unknown right now. And I love Brandon Cooks. I also like Nico Collins. I really think that guy's got the juice to run the entire route tree with efficiency and be productive on every level of the football field, short, intermediate, and deep. And he's a big guy who's, going to run or runs in the neighborhood of 4.4s. So he's got an amazing catch rate. So I like those two guys on the flanks. I think where they're kind of lacking is the production in the backfield. I'd like to see, I know they're really excited about Dameon Pierce. They're excited about that. We'll see what happens there. But I on offense, I think what they're going to have to rely on being able to do is keep a lot of the scores close, because their defense is a lot closer to being good than their offense is right now. So we'll have to see how it goes this year.
All right. Now, speaking of their offense, I mean, of course, we talked about Brandon Cooks, and of course, we've talked about Davis Mills, but do you see any more potential surprise weapons? As you mentioned Nico Collins.
Yeah.
Do you see anybody else potentially being a guy for them?
If it happened, it'd be a surprise to me, because a lot of the receivers that they have on the roster have been previous spots, and it just hasn't happened for them. And I'd have a hard time believing they'd come to Houston and start making waves. So we'll see. But I just those are the two guys that are going to have to carry it, in my opinion, if they are to make some sort of a run in that division.
Totally understandable. I mean, and you just look at the Lovey. Hey, I wish him the best. That offense,
Me too.
The offense, defense. They'll be interesting defensively because Lovey's coaching them. But other than that, I don't know.
It's tough.
Yeah, it's tough to watch. It's going to be tough to watch. Of course, speaking of tough to watch, the Jacksonville Jaguars weren't necessarily the nicest to see on the eyes last year.
No, they weren't.
Hopefully with the new coach, out goes Urban Meyer, in comes Doug Peterson. Hopefully they will be better and a little bit easier to see. And that starts with the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. Now, of course, He didn't have the greatest rookie season. Of course, he was also talking to media and trying to be the adult in the room at the same time.
Yes.
So this year, without him being the adult in the room and him just being the actual player and trying to develop, do you think he cracks the top 20 of quarterbacks this year, potentially with his production and specifically fantasy football production?
I think he does. I think he cracks the top 20. One of the reasons is Travis Etienne, not Travis Etienne, the running back, but Travis Etienne, the receiver. I know for a fact that the plan and the reason he was drafted, it was not to take over for the running back that was already in place. It was for him to be on the field at the same time as the the former starter or the current starter. So
Yeah, James Robinson.
Yeah, and James Robinson. Yeah, so it's not for him to usurp him. It's for them to be productive together. Yes, he's going to spell James Robinson at times, but he's not there to take over that running back spot. I feel like James Robinson is a little more instinctive between the tackles and as a runner, where Travis Etienne doesn't get enough respect and enough credit is as a receiver. And I feel like out of the backfield, you're going to see him get some work there. So I look for him to be more in that Alvin Kamara role this season. Will he become maybe that every down guy potentially? And I think he has that in him. He could probably do it right now. But I think the idea is to get them both involved. So look forward to that happening this year.
Gotcha. Okay. And of course, I have to ask you, of course, with the wide receiving position, you have Christian Kirk, who they call him Big Money K. I'm just kidding. I just created that. But you have Christian Kirk, you have Zay Jones, you have Marvin Jones.
Right.
To me, I'm just trying to figure out which one of those guys would you say you would take a bet on if you had to pick one in fantasy football?
Marvin Jones all day long. He is the consummate pro. I had the privilege of covering him and interviewing him one-on-one when he was at the Senior Bowl. And I've been a huge fan of his game ever since. He is extremely savvy. He does a great job of when the ball's in the air, showing late hands. And going up and getting that thing. Like I'm a huge fan of Marvin Jones. He's a detailed route runner. He knows how to make everything look the same coming off the ball. He may not be going full speed, but daggone, it looks like it. And he's going to get you, moving your hips one way or the other. He's going to get you out of your back pedal, and he's got you. So I think the savvy that Marvin Jones has as a route runner and as a wide receiver in general, he would be the one, even though he's a little older, he would be the one guy I'd go ahead and put a and pick during fantasy football.
All right. Well, we went through the AFC South. We've kind of given you've kind of given a fantasy football tutorial to those that are not very savvy in the game. And of course, if you are savvy in the game, you should have been taking notes anyway. Or if you can rewind back the tape and kind of get everything else that all the gems that Brandon dropped. But we have reached the end of the show, and at the end of the show, there always is a game. Now, when the first time you were on, the game wasn't here, but the game's here now. It's got 5 questions. You got 2 answers. You got to pick one.
Oh, man.
Are you ready?
I guess so.
All right. We got, if you have to pick one running back, Derrick Henry or Jonathan Taylor?
Oof, man. That's a tough one. I'm gonna go ahead with Derrick Henry, man. Nobody wants to step in front of that. Jonathan Taylor, I love him as far as his open field ability, and once he gets out in the open field, it's rare to see anybody catch him. And same with Derrick Henry. He's just not as fast in the open field, but he's fast enough. Always been fast enough. So I'm just gonna go with Derrick Henry because he had pretty much lapped the field. It took, I think, like 3 more weeks before anyone caught up to him prior to the injury. So it's hard to go against that. So Derrick Henry for sure.
All right. And we did have a question in the inbox about if he was if Jonathan Taylor may be the better fantasy football pick potentially because he can catch the ball better.
Nah, I don't think so.
I figured that might be your answer. All right. Now we're going to go with the veteran quarterbacks, the wily veteran quarterbacks. We've got Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers. Which one would you pick in fantasy football?
I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers. And I know that, he no longer has his go-to receiver in Devontae Adams, but it's Tom Brady for the first time is going to be in that division in the NFC South with offensive line issues, and it's going to take a while before they develop a chemistry there. You know, you have some notable absences along that offensive line, and it's going to be interesting to see. There's a lot of questions there. So I think that I bet on Aaron Rodgers making the most of his receivers while still being protected than Tom Brady not being necessarily protected, but with maybe having some weapons on the flanks. Got to have time to throw.
That's true. That's true. You can't make passes to open receivers if you're looking up at the sky.
There you go. There you go.
Now we're going to move on to the tight end position. Now you mentioned one of these gentlemen earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go Mark Andrews or Travis Kelce. Which one would be the better fantasy guy?
You know what? My guy Andrew Spurrill, he trains my two boys, over at XPE, and he also trains Travis Kelce. And he would get mad at me if I pick anyone other than Travis Kelce. So I'm going to go with Travis Kelce. You can probably going to get bullied into that one. So, yeah, Travis Kelce. Until Travis Kelce retires, I'm going with him.
It's going to be interesting to see his production this year, definitely,
sure.
With all the different changes.
For sure.
Of course, we're going to go wide receivers, and I've got an interesting pairing for you here: A.J. Brown or Mike Williams.
Ooh. You know what, man? I'm a big fan of A.J. Brown after the catch. Huge fan of the way he runs with the football after the catch. He gets down the hill and he's playing no games. And I'm going to have to go with A.J. Brown. I like Mike Williams. I think he's tremendous talent, but it's A.J. Brown for me.
Gotcha. All right, and the last one, we're going to go with wide receivers, one that some think gets a little bit too much praise and one that people tend to forget about. That would be DJ Moore and Amari Cooper.
Oof. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead with especially this football season. I'm going to go with DJ Moore. I think he has more of a chance to be productive with Baker Mayfield in the fold than does who else did you say again? I'm sorry.
Amari Cooper. He does kind of disappear.
Yeah.
So I
think that's what happened there. He disappeared in my mind. Disappeared. No, I'm not going to do that. Cooper's a great talent as well, but it just has seemed in the past, and I give him credit. I forget which game it was. He had a soft, he had some sort of muscle tear, and he, powered through it, caught the game-winning touchdown. So, you got to give a guy like that credit. You have to. But, and I think he's a tremendous talent, but I would have to go with the other receiver there. So, that's it. DJ Moore would be my guy.
There you go. There you go. That is the end of the game, and that is the end of the show. But, of course, that's not the end for you because, of course, I want to give everyone a chance to find out what you're working on, how to find you on social media, whatever you want to say. The floor is yours.
Oh, no problem. So you can find me on Twitter at bhoward_81. And we're just getting ready to release a couple of kits about some of the receiver options for fantasy football, and we're also going to get into some dual threat options at the running back position. Catching and receiving, what makes them so valuable and why they're as dynamic as they are. So those are some of the things to look out for me in the future here. So that's what we're working on over at The Athletic.
Now, for those that aren't aware, you can look up The Athletic and you can go ahead and pay that subscription so you can get some of this great valuable knowledge you just got here. So just want to give everyone a heads up there. Thank you again for coming on. Thank you for all the knowledge that you dropped. And, of course, thank you, everyone, for tuning in. You've been tuned in to Touring the AFC South with your host, Mike Patton. We're out.